Welcome to the Gay Buddhist Forum, where teachers from all schools of Buddhism offer their perspectives on the Dharma and its application in modern times, especially for LGBTQI audiences. These talks are offered freely to the world and made possible by appreciative listeners. If you would like to support our efforts to share the Dharma with underserved audiences, please visit gaybuddhist.org. There you can donate, find a list of upcoming speakers, or enjoy many hundreds of these recorded talks dating back to 1996.
Welcome again. It's our custom at this point to go around and introduce ourselves. So, my name is Henry.
Alex.
Luis.
I'm Greg.
Dewey.
Jeremy.
Jordan.
Steph.
Matthew.
Bob.
Cass.
Carter.
I'm Richard.
George.
Tony.
What's that? And let's see, online we have Francis, Ruben, Jeff, Michael, Bob, Harley, Jason in San Rafael, Daniel in Brazil, Christian, Nino, Michael, Frisco Wolf, Gibbs, Tom, Sam, and Ron. Let me tell you about our speaker today. It's my honor and pleasure to welcome back David Lewis, a longtime member of this Sangha. David has been following the Dharma path for 50 years and has a degree in comparative religious studies. He teaches at several Buddhist Sanghas around the Bay Area and offers a weekly meditation group for seniors, currently on Zoom, at Open House, a nonprofit serving LGBTQI plus seniors. David is always happy to return to the Gay Buddhist Fellowship, where he gave his first Dharma talk in 2008. You're on.
Thank you. I was just wondering at the beginning, of the technological leap that we made post-pandemic, during the pandemic, and from pre-pandemic. It's just amazing. I never would have imagined that we'd have screens and microphones and such like, but here we are. Very pleased to be here this morning. I don't want to forget to, in all transparency and in the interest of too much medical information, tell you all that I had a minor surgery on my eyelids, both my tops and my bottoms, about a month ago. And I'm still healing up from that. It's kind of been a good healing process, but one of my eyes gets really dry sometimes, so I may have to stop and take a pause and put some eye drops in periodically during the talk or afterwards, which is kind of an opportunity for me to take a pause in the talk and be with my body, which is always a really wise thing to do. So I just want to invite that opportunity for you as well. Is if I stop talking for any reason, if I have a stroke and fall off my chair, stop and check in with your body. What's going on right now? Or you can watch me put eye drops in, which is a very interesting activity. So, I wanted to talk about refuge, about finding refuge today. And what inspired me to speak about refuge is what always inspires me about refuge, and that's that we live in tough times. No matter what's going on in your own personal life, if you do nothing else but read the newspaper in the morning, we live in tough times. We live in stressful times. And there are certain things we can do to alleviate the suffering in our own lives, and there are certain things that we can do to alleviate the suffering in the world. But we can't solve it all. So at some point, we just have to do a little bit of letting go accept that this is the way things are, and find a refuge of peace and calm in ourselves. Otherwise, we're just going to be stressed out constantly because of politics, because of war, because of life events. Everybody's got their top 5 list. So I was kind of reflecting on this topic, as I do quite a lot. And just before I had my surgery, I visited some relatives out of state. And it was an easy visit. And yeah, I hadn't been on a plane for a while, but that went all right. But when I came home and opened up my front door and stepped into my house, I just had this felt sense of relief. I had a really good time visiting my relatives and being out of town. But there's something about coming home and stepping into your own refuge, your own home. I just felt this sense of relief. And so I went and I just sat. I did a set. First thing I did when I got home was I did a set. And just let go of the stresses of the road. And I'm really grateful that my mindfulness practice allowed me to take in that felt sense of refuge, because it was such a beautiful thing. It was so comforting to come home. When we're out and about, traveling in the world, as I was doing on this trip, but whether it's a vacation or just getting groceries down the street, our minds are on higher alert. We're watching out for. A friend of mine has this favorite expression that I just love. She does it jokingly. She says, "Danger lurking everywhere." You never know when somebody's going to not stop at a stop sign, or there's dog poop on the sidewalk. You just have to be on higher alert when you're out and about, right? And that contributes stress to our lives. So it's useful to notice how stressed we get in certain whatever circumstances, and it's useful to notice how comforting it is and skillful it is to find refuge from that stress. And in a sense, that's the core of the Buddha's teaching. The Buddha said, "I teach only dukkha and the end of dukkha. I teach only dissatisfaction with the ways of the world and the ways of alleviating dissatisfaction." So home, for me, coming home was a felt sense of refuge, and I know that that's not true for everybody. Home isn't always a refuge for everybody. Sometimes home is a stressful place for whatever reason. But the Buddha taught that true refuge, comes from within. So for me, coming home and feeling a sense of refuge gave me this really useful sense of refuge, but it also reminded me that refuge is not necessarily about a place or a person. Refuge is a state of mind. The real refuge is the peace and serenity of mind that the Buddha teaches us to cultivate. And it's available wherever we go. It's available if we know how to tap into it. And that is the practice that we do. We're learning how to tap into peace and serenity, no matter what's going on in our lives, with an emphasis on no matter what's going on in our lives. I have another story. This is kind of a gory one about my surgery, which wasn't a terrible surgery, but it failed at one point where the stitches on the corner of one of my eye came loose. It was the first day of Labor Day weekend, so everything was closed down, and I woke up in the morning and my eyelid was just hanging down. Like you could see the red part, and you could see the bottom of my eye. And it was actually bleeding a little bit out of the corner. I just thought, okay, we'll deal with this. And so I called Kaiser, the emergency line, and they were just wonderful. They said they got the on-call ophthalmologist to give me a call within an hour or two. And it was a holiday weekend, and he said, "No problem, meet me at the office." And we came from home. And so I thought, okay, well, I can't see very well, and this looks kind of scary, but I don't think I'd better drive. Everybody else that I could think of was out of town, so I hopped on a bus, a public bus. I put on sunglasses, but it was still kind of dripping blood. It looked like a Halloween costume. I hopped on a public bus, and it's a straight bus ride from me to Kaiser, so it was an easy bus ride. It takes about half an hour, but I tapped into my practice when I was sitting on that bus going to the Kaiser office in this kind of semi-small emergency. And I had this moment of complete peace and ease and contentment. And my mind just pretty much stopped on the bus ride. And then I noticed that mindfully. About halfway to Kaiser, I thought, oh, this is really something. I think maybe 10, 15 years ago, I'd be freaking out. And I'm not right now. And that's fruits of practice. So that was another kind of refuge, taking refuge in the practice. And I could freak out, but I don't have to freak out. And if I don't freak out, it's a much more pleasant experience. Ajahn Amaro, who's a British monastic, a very wise man, has a meditation instruction, which is one of my favorite meditation instructions because it's so simple. He says, rest in the peace and ease of the mind, which is the peace and ease of the mind. Rest in the peace and ease of the mind, which is the peace and ease of the natural mind. So what he's saying is that peace and ease that I referred to is not some extraordinary state that we work really hard to get if we meditate enough. That peace and ease is our natural state of mind. And we can learn how to tap into it. And it's more about letting go than it's about getting something. While I was away, I stayed for a bit with a relative of mine who's 10 years older than I am. And I'm 70, so she's 80. And her son had given her an iPad. But didn't tell her how to use it. So I show up and she said, well, I got one of these, but I don't know how to use it. So I sat down and I kind of helped her use it, and she was just confused. But finally, it occurred to me, I thought, oh, your iPad has a home button. So just, whenever you get confused, whenever you don't know what's going on, or you lose your place scrolling through pages or apps, just press that home button. And she did, and she said, oh, that's easy. And her fear just fell away. Because there was a home button. And I thought, wow, that's kind of what mindfulness is for a lot of us. It's a home button. We get stressed out, we get caught up in our preoccupations, we get upset about the news of the world. But if we know that we have a home button, if we know we can be mindful, if we know we can just come back to the breath, just come back to the body, then there's instant refuge. We can instantly come home. And home, as I said, is a state of mind. That reminds me that the Pali word, Pali was the language of the Buddha's time, the Pali word for mindfulness is sati. And the Pali word for mindfulness has the same root as our English word for remembering. So you might have heard this before, but so mindfulness has a very strong component of remembering in it. Not remembering some fond memory or terrible memory, but remembering to be mindful. Mindfulness is largely the practice of remembering to be mindful, or remembering to be aware, if that works better for you. Sharon Salzberg said that as a kind of famous quote in the Buddhist community. She says, mindfulness is the ultimate mobile device. You can use it anywhere, anytime, unobtrusively. So that's what I was doing on that bus ride to Kaiser. I was using my mobile device in mindfulness. I was sitting there. Everybody else was on their other mobile devices. But I was using my mindfulness mobile device unobtrusively. Nobody knew what I was up to. It was just with the body. Our ability to pay attention, to be aware, again, is always there. And when we cultivate that quality of attention, which is what we do in practice, then every present moment becomes a refuge. We only need to gently turn toward it and accept it. Another famous monk that I'm a fan of has a little phrase that he uses about just about everything, which I really love. He says, it's like this. You might say, I really like this ice cream cone. You say, ice cream, it's like this. He says, just found out I had a scary diagnosis. You say, yeah, scary diagnosis, it's like this. This is however you're responding to it. The Tibetan teacher Mingyur Rinpoche says that the insight that the Buddha discovered is so simple and yet so difficult to accept. His teachings introduce us to a dormant, hidden, unrealized part of ourselves. This is the great paradox of the Buddhist path, that we practice in order to know what we already are. Therefore, attaining nothing, getting nothing, going nowhere. We seek to uncover what has already been here all along. So, we're already at home. We just often don't appreciate it because chances are we're wanting things to be other than they are. I've always thought that The Wizard of Oz is a great Dharma story. And years ago at a GBF retreat, actually, I gave a whole Dharma talk about The Wizard of Oz. I want to resurrect sometime because it's such a great Dharma story. But in a nutshell, if you know The Wizard of Oz story, Dorothy goes out into the world, and after she dreams of a better world. That's her fantasy. She fantasizes and dreams of a world that's better than the one that she's living in. And so, by chance, she has the opportunity to actually visit this other better world. And after a long journey of wondrous things happening, and new friends, and meeting scary obstacles, she just finds it all kind of overwhelming. And lo and behold, along comes Linda the Good Witch and tells her she has a home button. Just click your heels together 3 times. Say, there's no place like home. There's no place like home. T.S. Eliot said, we shall cease from exploration, and the end of our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. Of course, if you know the Wizard of Oz story, you know that Dorothy's journey was all a dream. And that makes it even better, Dharma story. There's a Chinese proverb that holds, all of life is a walking dream. All of death is a going home. So on retreats, excuse me a moment, when we go to retreat, we often start the day, at least in my tradition, not all traditions, we start the day by chanting the refuges. And if you've never heard them, There are three refuges. You've never heard them in Pali. They're kind of beautiful, so I can do it very quickly. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami. And what that means in English is, I go to the Buddha for refuge. I go to the Dhamma for refuge. I go to the Sangha for refuge. Every day in retreats. Some people in their private practice do the refuges in English or Pali, however you would like to do it, every time they sit. Because it's really useful to remind ourselves that we have these reliable refuges. It's a core practice in Buddhism. They each have at least a double meaning that is worth exploring. Taking refuge in the Buddha means taking refuge in the historical teachings of the Buddha and the example of the Buddha himself. But it also means acknowledging the Buddha within, that each one of us is a Buddha. Acknowledging our own innate ability to wake up is taking refuge in Buddhism. Taking refuge in the Dhamma is closely related. It's taking refuge to the collective teachings of the tradition, the Dhamma being the teachings, but Dhamma is the Pali word for Dharma, which is the Sanskrit word. Dharma can be translated as reality, as nature, as things as they are. Evolution is Dharma. Actions of the stars is Dharma. So acknowledging the presence of dukkha in our lives, as well as the impermanence of all phenomena and the impersonal nature of our experience, is Dharma. Those are the principal insights of Dharma practice. Seeing the interconnectedness of all beings and realizing the promise of freedom is taking refuge in the Dharma. If awareness is present, wisdom is present. I recently sat at a retreat with kind of local teacher, Gil Flunstone, and he asked the question in the retreat, what is it that is to be known by the wise? I think the Buddha might have asked this question. He might have been quoting the Buddha. And Gil said, what is it that is to be known by the wise? And his answer was, that which is refuge, freedom, the Dhamma, which is the nature of things. So taking refuge in the Sangha can refer to our spiritual ancestors. Everybody that's partaken in this practice since the Buddha's time, all of our spiritual ancestors, the monastics, the teachers, our fellow yogis, lay practitioners, going back to the historical Buddha. But it can also refer, obviously, as you know, Sangha can also refer to this group of us sitting here this morning, in this room and on Zoom. We're Sangha, meeting together. Most people report that it's easier to meditate in Sangha, in groups. Most people report that it's easier to share insights and talk about insights that they have in their practice when they're talking to other practitioners. So that's the power of Sangha. You might have felt it this morning. You might have noticed, on Sunday mornings it's so much easier to sit for half an hour than it is when I'm home alone. That's the power of Sangha. And speaking and talking about insights and having conversations like this, I frequently amuse myself by thinking that if I was giving this talk or if I was having this conversation right now with anybody other than Sangha, with a non-Buddhist practitioner, non-Buddhist, they would just look at me like I was nuts. It would just make absolutely no sense. It would not be a kindness on my part. So that's the beautiful refuge of Sangha. And for those of you on Zoom, I give a lot of talks on Zoom and teach meditation classes. there's this phenomena that kind of I noticed when you started doing Zoom meetings that I really enjoy, and that's when you're kind of sitting there for waiting for a meeting to start, a song meeting, and faces start popping onto the screen. That's just lovely. It's like they're like devas. They're like little spirits, coming out of the Ethernet. But I like it even better in person. You're my Sangha. You're my people. I feel safe here. Ram Dass said, we are all just walking each other home. We're all just walking each other home. That's Sangha. So the Buddha invites us to be islands unto yourselves, refuges unto yourself, seeking no external refuge, with the Dharma, which is the truth, as your island, the Dhamma as your refuge, seeking no other refuge. It's a reminder that we already have everything we need. You don't need to listen to a whole lot of Dharma talks like this. You don't have to do deep study. You don't have to learn Pali. You don't have to practice for years. But it helps to practice, because that's how we learn to find wisdom from within. That's how we learn that we have our own wisdom, our most profound insights come from our own experience, not from something some teacher says. The secret teaching of the Buddha, here I'm giving you the secret teaching. The secret teaching of the Buddha is that a peaceful heart and mind are our natural home. So I've mentioned a number of different refuges. Home, the Dharma, the Buddha, the Sangha. There's one I don't want to neglect, and that's the breath. The breath, of course, is just another aspect of being in the body. We all have bodies if we're alive. We all have bodies, and our bodies are breathing as long as we're alive. So the body is always present, and the breath is always present, no matter what your mind does. Meditating or not minding, if you're not meditating, if your mind gets caught up in causes or concerns or worries or drifts off or stories, the body is always here, as is the breath. So that's why the breath and the body, particularly the breath, has become such a universal refuge for people in meditation. It's so easy if you train yourself to remember sati, mindfulness, to remember, to be mindful. All you have to do is just take a break, check in with the breath, check in with your body, and you'll come right back to the present. It'll ground you right back in the present. So without doing anything special, just do that right now. Just take a breath and notice that you're taking the breath. It doesn't have to be a special breath. I often start my formal meditation, quite often, almost always, by focusing on the breath. It grounds me. It settles me. And once my body kind of settles, that's an invitation to the mind to settle. I often say when I'm giving instructions in meditation classes that a settled body lends itself to a settled mind, and vice versa. A settled mind lends itself to a settled body. And you can kind of notice that happening in your own direct experience. So even people that are not Buddhist practitioners, as you know, it's a common phrase in our culture. Know that when you're on the edge of panic, one of the best things you can do is take a breath. Somebody will just say, just take a deep breath. That's really good advice. It feels like a gift to me, the breath, and maybe more like some kind of state of grace. The Latin word for breath, you may know, is spiritus. breath or wind is spiritus. And that, of course, is the root word for our English word of spiritual. So I find that quite beautiful, because that's the spiritual core of our Buddhist practice is not dogma, it's not belief that we hold on to. It's the breath. It's being present. That's what being spiritual is, at least from a Buddhist point of view. The breath being something that's ever-changing, and yet you can't hold on to it. So that contains the lesson of impermanence. Just like our bodies, ever-changing, but you can't hold on to it. Everything is constantly in a process of becoming something else. And when you sit quietly in meditation, that's what you notice. You might not like it, especially in the beginning. Some people find that really disturbing. Everything changes. And then eventually it's like, oh, yeah, everything changes. So, most of you know that I've been living with AIDS for 35 years now. And this practice, as much as anything else, as far as I can figure out, is what's kept me alive. It's been my refuge. It's been my support. I turned 70 this year, so it's kind of like two big anniversaries for me, because I turned 70, which I certainly never thought that I would. And it's 35 years of living with AIDS, so half of my life I've been living with a disease that I thought I was going to die from 35 years ago. I honestly don't know if I'd be alive today if not for my practice. And my gratitude knows no bounds. My gratitude for the practice. So, there's some terrible wars happening in the world right now. And there's some terrible divisiveness in our own country. And we have an election year coming up. And it looks like it's going to be a bumpy ride. All of that worries me. But I'm so grateful that I know that I have these refuges that I can tap into when it all becomes overwhelming. I think I'll be able to survive it. We had a lesson back in 2016 when the person got elected that I didn't think was going to get elected, and it really threw me for a loop. The Dharma saved me. I think we need to know what our refuges are and to be able to tap into them. I think it's important for our survival and our well-being. Peace is available. Just keep reminding yourself, peace is available at any moment, no matter what's going on, if we can turn toward it. And in Refuge, starting to draw to a close here, in Refuge, I just want to say, I always feel a certain sense of joy in Refuge, whether it's coming home from a trip or meeting spiritual friends or hearing the Dhamma. The Buddha always said that hearing the gift of the Dhamma should be a cause for joy. So I hope it is for you this morning. Because as one of my teachers, the Venerable Ananda, likes to say, the whole of the Buddha's path can be seen as a progressive refinement of joy. You don't often hear it put that way. Ananda is one of the wisest teachers that I know. So finally, the ultimate refuge is Nirvana. Nirvana, the unconditioned, the cessation of attachment, aversion, and ignorance. This too is also available to you. The Buddha promised I would not tell you about it if I did not think it was possible. I can't say I have not achieved Nirvana, but I trust the Buddha. And it really comforts me, the Buddhist, that I wouldn't even bother telling you about it if I didn't know it was possible. So I'd like to end with a quote from Jetsumna Tenzin Palmo. Some of you might know her teachings, who said, "The nature of the mind has no problems. It is the only place in samsara which has no problems. It's our real island of refuge. And this is why we are trying to experience the nature of mind, because this is the only place where there is security." So thank you for that. And I don't know how it got to the 11:43. I must have talked too much. So I was going to do some breakout groups, and the question would have been, where do you find refuge? So you can reflect on that for the rest of the day, but we don't have time. So any questions or comments or reflections of your own? Or does anybody care to offer where do they find refuge? Please.
Hi, my name is Robert.
Robert.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. This is my refuge. I'm sorry. I have difficulty meditating on my own.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
I have difficulty meditating on my own. And I used to come here or elsewhere, but like once in a while, and encounter great difficulty in my life in the past several months. And the result is debilitating anxiety attacks and so forth. But I started going to the Zen Center every day, sitting with anxiety, just really uncomfortable. It's a little easier now, for whatever. I love, because I'm kind of lazy, I like having a commitment in meeting it. It's, the breath, too, is, I found that to be true. In the state of anxiety, wow, the breath is an escape. It's refuge, right?
Yeah.
So kind of along with that is, I heard you speak recently with the, I was online with the Hartford Street Zen Center recently, and became frustrated because I had somehow permanently muted myself, and I wasn't able to participate in whatever the question was that you presented. I wasn't able to answer it. But I know that what was going on was sort of a progression of what happened the past couple of days, and that is 11 months ago, I adopted an 18-year-old dog. It was such an amazing experience, and on Friday, he went home. And the thing is, once again, it's like refuge, because there were so many aspects of this experience that were not awful. And first of all, because it was such a peaceful experience, I had less fear of my own demise, right? And a better grasp of what impermanence means. I'm also incredibly brokenhearted and just sitting with it. Not like, I mean, I do a lot of chores to process it. You know, I have a hard time sitting still. But nevertheless, I see refuge in these experiences that are problematic, right? So I heard that again today in your talk, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you for that sharing. There's so much wisdom in what you say. And I can relate to a lot of it, as I imagine other people in the room can, but one particular thing that I'm really relating to is my neighbor across the street's dog died just about 3 or 4 days ago. And she was an old dog, and we saw it coming. We knew it was going to be, we've known for months that she's on her last legs. When she finally died, of course, her owner was devastated and sad. And we sat out on her front steps, and she said the same thing. She said, it's kind of, I'm so sad and I'm kind of relieved at the same time. And I said, it's just a reminder that we're all just passing through. Might be you or me next. But there's a powerful Dharma lesson in death, which is why so many Dharma people train in hospice work. It's because we see an opportunity in honoring the end of life in the same way that we honor birth. And it's all part of being part of the universe. We started out as stardust, and we're going to end up in stardust, right? And that's kind of a beautiful thing. If you understand the nature of impermanence, if you honestly, at a deep level, understand the nature of impermanence, which we see in our practice every day, then fear of death just dissolves. That's just another stage of life. But thank you particularly for the reminder that just sitting with anxiety sometimes helps. That's a really brave thing to do. And it does help. And I'm guessing that maybe because I might be projecting here a little bit, but I quoted Ajahn Siddhanta, who would like to say, it's like this. That when we sit with anxiety, instead of getting caught up in all the content of the anxiety, we say, it's like this. Anxiety is like this. It's just like this. It hurts. This is dukkha. And dukkha is also impermanent, right? Please.
Your story reminded me of the panic attack I had recently. And it was intense panic attack, and I had them before, and I kind of thought, I know how to deal with them. I just ignore it. And I know they're impermanent, blah, blah, blah. And then I said, okay, I will meditate. I sat and meditated. And like almost nauseating feel of dread. It's not going to work. Nothing is going to work. And I said, okay, I will breathe. I will move my energy. And I realized I cannot even sit. I had to lay down. And it was very painful and pleasant experience. And then the only thing that came to me was compassion and love to myself. I kind of accepted that it hurts. And I realized that the only thing I can do is to love myself in that state. And there was an element of intentional choice. Yes, that suffering I could not control, and yet that's my secondary reaction to it. I could choose loving myself in that suffering, as opposed to trying to control it with my mind, with meditation, with technique. And to me, that's an example of refuge. Love as a refuge, a universal refuge to anything. And it did stop panic attack. But the thing is that I didn't use it as a mental tool to stop the panic attack. I used it out of desperation because it was the only choice. But that seemed like it's antidote to panic attack in a way, because love is kind of incompatible. Or it can still love despite the panic attack and overwhelm it and accept it. It's bigger. And just wanted to share.
Thank you. Yes, love is a refuge. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because meditation isn't always the best thing to do with a panic attack or with anxiety. Sometimes it is, sometimes it helps. But sometimes it's better to just go for a walk or a swim or do something with your body. Sometimes activating the body gives more relief than meditate. So I'm not putting down meditation.
Taking Prozac helped me a lot too. By the way, sometimes the refuge is medication.
Henry, do we have time?
We have time for one more. Tom, can you speak?
Real quick, just David, thank you so much for a rich talk. I find it really interesting. You mentioned starting your practice with breathing. And so when we calm the body, often the mind will follow. But it's reciprocal. It works both ways because they're so interconnected. When our body is agitated, say in pain or chronic conditions, calming the mind can cause the body to follow. And I just thought that's a really great relationship that they have with each other.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. How about Bob?
Bob, Blair, did you wish to say anything?
No, Jeff had his hand up.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi, David, thank you so much for really heartfelt talk. I can relate to so much of it. And God, what a great topic. You know, what is that which is to be known by the wise, refuge? You know, at any moment. You know, I know a lot of us feel this way. We live in our heads, and thank God at some point I had the wherewithal to see a somatic psychotherapist who really taught me how to be in my body. And I kind of follow the organizing principle in general of be here now. And being here, the most concrete thing is the body. And sometimes it's literally like thinking from my head, okay, where are my feet? Start with my feet, find my feet. And that being in the body brings me into what's here. And and here is the refuge as far as I've been able to determine it so far. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you for the second great Ram Dass quote of the day. Be here now.
Welcome back.
When in doubt, be here now.
September 24th, 2023.
We're hearing a recording of another.
You have to turn off Apple Music.
Technology is wonderful.
Okay, I just want to acknowledge what grace and aplomb and equanimity Henry is doing. I mean, this is an advanced practitioner. And thank you, Henry.
Thank you, David. We must have some announcements.
Yes, I'm the host today, so please stay and enjoy the company of the Sangha. There are refreshments and hot water for tea, and if you use a cup, you can just actually, I think the dishwasher says dirty, so you can just put it in the dishwasher or the sink, and I'll take care of it. And I'll be going around with the Donna Bowl to accept contributions to cover our expenses. Your generosity is appreciated. Donations in the range of $10 to $20 help the Sangha meet its expenses. These include honorarium for our Dharma speakers, rent for this beautiful center, and maybe in the future the dinners at Michael Street Center, and our quarterly newsletter mailed mostly to people in prison. There's a newcomers sign-up sheet on the credenza. If you wish to be included and receive our Sangha membership directory, please sign up and include the contact information you wish to share with the group. Some members go out for lunch after the meeting. Everyone is welcome to join them. The group meets at the front door around 12:30 p.m.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Okay, David, would you like to lead us in the dedication of that?
I would be happy to.
Exactly.
We're here to acknowledge that what we shared this morning, including our silent practice, was beneficial, not only for us, but for everybody we come in contact with. And just as we wish to have refuge in our own lives and peace and ease in our meditation, that's something we wish for all beings. May all beings be safe from danger and harm. May all beings live with peace and ease. May all beings everywhere be free of suffering. May it be so.
Thank you for listening to the Gay Buddhist Forum. If you would like to hear several new talks per month and be notified of upcoming speakers so you can participate live, please subscribe to this podcast, like us on Facebook, and join our mailing list by visiting gaybuddhist.org.